The patch 14.2 is the first patch of the set 14 and it changed many things in the meta. So today in this video I'm going to share with you the meta tier list and I'm going to highlight 5 comps that you should focus this weekend if you really want to climb fast. So for the tier list we have many playable comps, but many of them are very conditional. Speaking of conditional comps, for instance, Golden Ox Vertical is a very strong comp, but only if you have the Golden Ox emblem and you can play from a very good spot in the early game so you can farm a lot of gold. The same goes with Nathri Miniature Reroll, which is nice, but only if you have the relevant artifacts for Nathri. So today I'm going to focus rather on 5 comps that you can play with a little bit less of conditions and still have a good game. Let's start with Brand Strategist. I already explained this comp last video, so I'm not going to drag it too much. It's a comp that requires a lot of gold, a lot of resources, because you need to be level 9 in order to find your 5 cost units. Bear in mind that if you're stuck level 8 without any 5 cost, you will have a very hard time just to try to get 4th or 5th. So I suggest you to play with a augment that gives you a lot of gold or experience, or play in a map or an encounter that gives you a lot of resources. You will prefer, if you can, to play around Brand as your main carry, but if you cannot find Brand because it's overly contested and you find Ziggs2, you play with Ziggs2 obviously. Ideally, you want to stabilize your board at stage 4 with this. You replace some of the late game units with cheaper ones like Mordekaiser, like Mundo. This should be good enough to help you stabilize your board at stage 4. And if you manage to save a good amount of health in the early game and mid game, you should be able to push level 9 to find your late game units. Another comp that you already know but has been changed a little bit due to the buffs and nerfs of some of the Exotech items. So Zeri Exotech is still very strong, but you really want to play now only if you have the Holobow as your Exotech item. So you want to combine Holobow with a crit item because it goes well together, and ideally you prefer to have the silencer with the Holobow because this is a crit item and they're both OP together. So the comp is really the same compared to last week. Honestly, it's exactly the same. The only difference is the items. You want to have Pulse plus Holobow plus Ginzu on Zeri. You want to have a Exotech item ideally on Veigar, and you want to have Veigar and Aura as your late game carries to help you finish the late game fights. If you don't have an Exotech emblem, you can play 7 Exotech, but only if it gives you these 2 items. If you don't have these 2 items with 7, I suggest you to play 5 with the Holobow plus IE plus Ginzu. You play 5 Exotech and you replace Nathri and Varus by Veigar, and whatever thing that's good in the late game can be Zac, can be Garen, can be anything else. One of the issues with this patch, if you don't like reroll comps, is that you will hate this patch simply because the reroll comps are simply better. It's a little bit conditional. You cannot play reroll comp every time you want, but most of the time, if you can play reroll comp, you should. And one of them is Veigar. So Veigar is especially powerful if you manage to have a blue buff early game, and you should have Gunblade as well next to it. Now that Veigar can crit with his spell, because there was a bug in the previous patch, you can put Jew Gauntlet as the 3rd item. Otherwise you can put Rabadon, you can put Giant Slayer. It's a little bit more flexible, but these 2 first items, blue buff and Gunblade, are extremely useful. And I mean, blue buff is mandatory, Gunblade is not mandatory but almost. But yeah, blue buff is definitely the best item you should have if you want to play Veigar. The way you want to play, you reroll level 6, you play some Bastion, you play Poppy and Cyberboss and Veigar, you have Veigar 3, then you push a level because you really want to have 4 Cyberboss, and you want to have late game carries, side carries like Ziggs, Veigar, or even Brand. If you have enough items, you can stuff all of them. This is going to be awesome. So I want to talk rapidly about some specificities of this comp. If you have Blue Battery, this is utterly broken. This is the augment that gives you all the reasons you need to play Veigar. But you can also play Blazing Soul, Bulky. As for the artifacts, if you can have Manazane, Veigar, it's kind of similar to Blue Battery. This is an excuse to force Veigar because this item is just godlike on Veigar. Now let's talk about another reroll comp that you already know, but is a little bit different now. The way you want to play it is, I would say now, Slayer reroll, not just Vayne reroll. Jarvan has been buffed significantly, way over buffed in my opinion and in opinion of many players. This is just insane. He can deal a huge amount of damage. He's tanky as fuck, and also he gets healed because he's a Slayer, so he can get healed by both Vayne, Senna, and Zed. So all of them has kind of a gunblade integrated, so Jarvan can stay alive a very long time while also removing the armor of the units he attacks with his spell. So I don't know, like this guy has too much things in his kit. Now that if you want to climb on TFT, when something is broken, you have to abuse it because this is how you climb, right? Nothing to say about that. So the way you want to play this comp is a little bit different than before because the tempo will be slightly different. Of course, you want to be level 6. You want to reroll for Vayne. You want to make sure, of course, you have Ginzu because without Ginzu, Vayne is a little bit cringe. And you need 2 of them. That's the best. Then the third LM can be can be another Ginzu, yes. But it can be Renine, can be Giant Slayer. You don't try to be too picky with the third LM, but you need 2 Ginzu. When you reroll at level 6, you will hold as many Senna and Jarvan as possible because they might come very fast, since you will want to make them 3 stars later. Once you have Vayne 3, you can have Raz 3. This is good, but not mandatory. You will push your level, and you will push level at level 8. At level 8, let's say that you didn't find a lucky Zed early, so you will play 6 Vanguards like this. But once you find Zed, you will play 4 Slayers, 4 Vanguard, 3 Divini Corp. Let's say you don't have a Renekton at level 8, and you will put him at level 9. Let's talk about the typical scenario. When you're level 8, you will have to decide if you are contested on Jarvan and Senna, and how far you are from 3 stars. If you're contested and you're far from them, just push your level, add a Renekton, and well, you won't be able to have 3 star on these 2 units, but they will still be relevant. In that case, you will probably not play for first. If you are not contested, then you will try to play Jarvan 3, Senna 3, Zed, and all of that, and then you have a very good spot to finish first. As you might have seen, this comp requires a lot of resource. You will not be able to reach that amount of 3 star units if you don't have a reroll augment and or if you're not in a map that gives a lot of resources. The best augments that you want to have, let's say that you really want to force this comp, is to have Prismatic Ticket at 2-1, too much value at 2-1, or you can also have Hairy Grab Bag a little bit later in the game. If, however, you feel like you're not contested, you are in a map with a lot of resources, you can decide to play Pumping Up as a combat augment that's really nice in this comp, and later at 3-2, you can try to grab something like Hairy Grab Bag or Prismatic Ticket and reroll all this comp. So try to adapt based on what the game gives you. Try to adapt based on what the others player play, because you might be contested. When you manage to get this comp, this is insanely broken, and you will have fun. Now, let's say that you really want to play Vayne Reroll. You have your Ginzu, but you can't find Vayne, and she's already contested. You play Twisted Fate. I think this comp is slightly, not just slightly, I think this comp cannot cap as high as Slayer's reroll, because simply Slayer reroll, if you have Jarvan 3, Senna 3, Vayne 3, Z2 and all of that, is just like almost impossible to beat. But this comp can still beat Vayne reroll if the Vayne reroll doesn't have a very cap late game board. You really want to play with Twisted Fate as your main carry, Darius as your main tank, and then for the late game, because Twisted Fate isn't going to be good enough, you will need more damage with Misfortune and Aurora, especially that Aurora can bring 1 unit in the board, like a Zac with many blobs, and that can give enough time for Twisted Fate to stack with Ginzu and AP thanks to his passive. So once again, the way you want to play is you reroll at level 6. This time you will reroll Twisted Fate, Darius, and you can reroll Raz, Braum as well. if you're lucky and you find a lot of Braum, why not? It's actually good. But the most important 2 are these ones. And once you have them, Once you have them, you push a level. You will want to have 5 syndicates at level 8 or 7 if you're lucky and you have a misfortune early. But 8, usually that's the most typical moment when you can fit in 5 syndicates. And then you push your level 9 to add Aurora. If you have Aurora, you can remove, at level 8 for instance, you can remove Zeri for Aurora. It doesn't matter. Aurora is just too important, so you have to play her as fast as possible, as soon as possible rather. This is also another comp you want to play with reroll augments. Starry Night is busted. Since you reroll a lot of 2-cost units, Starry Night is just the best augment you want to have, but you can also have too much value. Just like I said for Vayne, you can start with pumping up, but again, be careful, it can be dangerous because if you start with that, you may not have enough gold at 3-2 to push level 6 and roll for your 2 stars and stabilize your board, but it's fine. One thing I really recommend is to not discard Pandora items at 3-2. 4-2 is a little bit late. 2-1 it may have the same issue with pumping up, not allowing you to have enough gold, but 3-2 is really nice because you really need specific items and you need a lot of items. You need items for Darius, for To Set Fate, for Misfortune, for Aurora, so you really need a lot of items and Pandora is really nice for that. So like I said earlier, you have many comps that you can play if you have the good conditions. Even the comps I showed today require some conditions, like you cannot play Vayne without Ginzu, you cannot play some of the comps without specific items, or at least a good augment that allows you to have a lot of free rolls or a lot of money. But I kind of want to say all the comps are kind of similar. You don't have a go-to comp, you can just play from any spot. So that's why you need to be a bit more careful with what you want to play and make sure you have the right win conditions. So for that, I suggest you to check this meta tier list I'm updating every day, and you can come back anytime to be sure that it's updated to fit the meta. Until next video, see you at the top of the ladder.